Alrighty, I am going to start with outlining my frog and my lily pad and my dragonfly. I have a 1/2 inch angle brush that I can outline with, or if you feel more comfortable, there's a 1/4 half inch angle brush. I'm going to start with the black, and I want to dip in my water first, and I'm going to pull a little bit of black, scrape on one side and scrape on the other. That way it brings it to more of a fine point. You can also use the very tip point to outline with also. I'm going to wipe off the excess black onto my paper towel. And I can either clean this brush out or I can use another one, which I think I actually have these ones. These are 1/2 inch angles also, but they've been used more and they're a little bit more softer. So I'm going to start with one of these. But you can use your nicer one too if you prefer. But for now I'm going to put this one in the water. And what I want to do is my edges first. So I'm going to take my brush and dip it in the water. And I'm going to start with the blue. So I'm going to pull a little bit of blue to the side. And load it up on my brush. And as you're painting the edges, let it come around the front a little bit. And just scrub your brush back and forth. Okay, so you want to make sure that your black that you outline with first is dry, and you can feel it. Or you can also look kind of at an angle or at the side. You can see if it looks like it's shiny or not. And mine looks pretty dry. And what I'm going to do when we start painting the water, or the sky and the water, I'm going to go right through my black lines. So this is why I want this to be dry, because I don't really drag the black through. So I still have my brush with the blue on it, and I dipped in my water again. I have a little bit softer, or a little bit wetter area with my blue. But if you're working upright, you have to be careful that it's not drippy, because you don't want it to, you know, drip down your canvas if you got your canvas upright. So you just want it a little bit wetter. but not drippy. And I'm going to start pulling this blue straight down. And we'll go all the way down. And I'm not going to try to avoid the black lines, I'm just going to go right through them. So you should still be able to see your black through there, where I outlined before. Those are the what are they called? Cattails. These are the cattails here. Now if you'd like to, you could add a little bit of white, and you can streak in a couple places. But I put a little bit too much white, it made me lose that black line, so I'm going to add a little bit of water. Thin it out. So don't use the white too much, because it can actually cover up your black lines. Or at least don't use the white too much over the where you outlined in black earlier. And I think I want to add a little bit of the green. I'm going to go into the green here. I'm going to streak a little bit of green in here. Also, be sure to make the strokes go all the way from the top to the bottom and the bottom back up, so that you don't really want these short little ones like that. You want it to go all the way down. Mangling it up so I can see a little bit better, because there's a little bit of glare, and now I can see where some of my canvas is showing through. And I'm just adding a little bit of watered down color to cover that. Feel free to put a few other streaks in here if you like. Just kind of playing with it now. extra green down here at the bottom right now. I'm just flicking it off the end. It's starting to look a little bit like grass. And I'm using a phthalo green, so I think I might pick up a tiny bit of yellow and streak over some of the places where I've got the green. You don't have to do that, it's just if you want. Gives it a whole different look. Okay, so I am going to put a moon here in a little bit, but in the meantime, I think I want to give it a little bit of a horizon back here. So I'm going to come in with some of the green, and I'm just going to dab, dab, and I'm going to dab across some more. I'm coming down at a little bit of an angle, and you can add some. Yeah, I didn't clean off my brush. I just picked up some yellow. Dab some yellow in here. And maybe even a little bit of white, so you can see a little bit better. And then let's go over here. I'm just guessing. Going probably over here. Now if you really want to be more perfect about it, you can get a ruler out. But I'm just eyeballing it. And then I'm going to make a pond come around here. So I'm just going to fill in with some yellows and greens and maybe a little white. I'm avoiding my cattail where I drew that in earlier. Let's see. And then I want to put, well, since I've got my fluffier brush, but like I said, you could use, you know, your other one that you outlined with earlier. But I'm going to go ahead and take some of that green that's on here and fill in these lily pads, and you might have to add, you know, a little bit of white. So I didn't clean off my brush, I picked up the white at first. Switch. I'm just avoiding where his little feet are and going in between his little toes. Now that's just the base coat where I put those little green, the green that's kind of more white and yellow on there. And I'm gonna come back and put a little bit darker green a little bit. So in the meantime, I've got some white and yellow. I'm gonna make a few extra lily pads. And these are like just base coats too, and we can add more green a little bit. Doesn't have to be a perfect shape. Just make your own shape, and it just looks like a resemblance of some lily pads floating off in the distance. Okay, and while you have some white on your brush, even if it has a little green, that's okay. I just turned it off. Okay. You could put a few little white marks out here that look like little water waves or little ripples in the water. And then I'm going to pick up the white again, and you can add a little yellow to it. So I've got a little bit of a white yellow. Oh, and also I'm taking my brush that's a little bit nicer and newer and finer, and I'm going to get a little paint on one side and then the other. So I have a little bit of white and a little bit of yellow in this brush right now. And I'm going to hold the brush at a side, and I'm going to make these little grass blades. You could also go back now and pick up some of the green. And make a few more. And you can go back and forth and add a little bit of green and maybe a little bit of yellow. So I might pick up the green for a little bit and make a few of these. And then I might pick up a little yellow and just overlap. Then I'm going to come down and make some down here too. So a little bit of the green, a few of those longer blades. And that's not showing up very well. Add a little yellow to it. And you can also, without cleaning out your brush, you can pick up the white again. I'm going to do a few long ones. If you're struggling with that a little bit, you can always dip in your water again and get a little bit more watered down paint. And that helps make that go a little further. And I might come back a little bit later and add some more greenery if I feel like it. For now though, since I've kind of got this green mixture on my brush, I'm going to maybe pick up a little bit more of the darker green. And I'm going to fill in my lily pad some more. Added a little bit of yellow too. Okay, so the frog, I want to put a little bit more of yellow and white on the underneath part of him. So I'm just gonna take my brush, clean it out. I'm gonna wipe off as much as I can on the paper towel. Maybe rinse it off once, but not, I didn't completely clean it out. And I'm going to pick up some yellow, maybe a little bit of white. Look at this yellow white color. And I just want to do the underside of his belly. I'll let that dry and come back and put a little bit more yellow in it again. I'm going to let him set for a little bit before I do the rest of him. So let's put some green and yellows and the dragonfly up here. I'm picking up more of the yellow right now. Oop, that's wet still. And I'm just going to come along and put yellow in each little section. Okay, let's see. I think I might let that set for a little bit too. Let's work on, I'm going to clean out this and I'm going to work on the moon. So I'm going to wipe off the excess and I'm going to clean it out a few times till the paint comes out clean. So I'm going to dip in my water. See, it's still coming out green, so I'm going to do this a few more times. And I'm going to use one of these for my circle, for my moon. So you might have something else laying around at home. And pick out what you'd like for whatever size you want for your moon. I'm going to put it about here. And pick up some white. And I'm going to outline it. Go. And then I want to fill it in. Now if you want to, you can attempt to do some rings around it to make it look like there's a little bit of a halo. If you have one of these brushes that have been used a little bit more, let's see what color I have on this one. There's like a little bit of green. But the fluffier one that was used a little bit more, I might try using that a little bit. So dipped in my white, I'm going to scrape off the excess. And I'm going to do a light touch. Well, that's it, it's too much. So I'm going to dab some of it off on my paper towel so that I don't have much on there at all. Now if you don't want to do this part, you can just leave it alone. But this brush that's more used and softer works a lot easier to do this part. If you accidentally got a big glob on there, just remember, you can lift it up with water right away. You can use a paper towel and with some water and you can lift it up. Or you can use a clean brush with some water and you can lift up the paint. The key is to get it right away. Okay, so, I like that. I think the moon looks fine. Put this brush aside. And I think I'm going to outline the wings a little bit more. So it might be easier if you have the brush that was 1/4 inch angled, or even if you have a small round one, this will work too. So whatever's easiest. And I'm going to dab in my black, scrape it on one side and then the other. I'm going to re-outline. And then I'm going to make a few lines in the wings, and you can look at pictures, to get an idea where you want to put your little inner lines. You can pull up dragonflies and get a good idea. Or you could just kind of guess and do your own thing. If you want, you can go back on where your frog is and fix his little feet too, so you can define them a little bit more. This is just to help me see them and get them back in there. Okay. I'll let that black set now. You can also take the black and go on the underneath part of each of these sections. You can also take a little bit of black and, well, I think I'll wipe off the black and actually go into my blue. This is something else I wanted to add in my water. And I want to add a few blue ripples in the water too. You put some right around the lily pads. And then I'm going to do some blue on the bottom side of the lily pads, like a blue shadow line. It looks like the water's moving. You can also add a little bit more blue around the edges. And might as well do a few blue grass blades. I think I'm going to put another dragonfly up here. You're going to want to use this little smaller brush, and you can use the tip again, or if you have a round brush you can use that. And we're going to actually just draw one in there. And I think, maybe I'll try my round brush. I'm going to dip in the water, and I'm going to pull some white for now. Twirl it in there. I'm going to angle it too. So I'm going to make the first little section, and then put the eyes in, and then there's a little tip part. And then I'm going to just draw the little sections. Trying to curve its body because sometimes you see the dragonflies and they're curved a little bit. And then these wings will just be a little bit more simple. For this dragonfly, I've got some of this magenta color. And I'm going to put that in its little sections. So you can add some white also to the magenta, so it lightens it up a little bit. And then I'm going to outline the wings some. Just lightly put a little bit of that magenta color into its wings. And then I want to do the same thing over here. I'm going to take a little bit of white, and a little bit of the magenta. I'm going to go back to my bigger brush though. Switching back to this bigger brush. I'll pick a little bit of this magenta color. And I don't want it to be real wet, so I'm going to dab off on my paper towel a little bit. And I just want to lightly put, I dabbed off too much, I'll lightly put a little bit of purple or that magenta color in here. And it just gives it an iridescent glow. I'm not filling the whole thing in, or I'm not filling all the wings in, but just portions. Since I've got the magenta pinkish color on my brush, I'm going to make a few lotus flowers. I'm using the tip and I'm just making it come down. Okay, making this shape. I've got a little bit of the pink and a little bit of white on it. So it's nothing perfect, I'm just putting this little dabs. You can put a little bit up here too. Okay, once again, I'm going to wipe off this brush. Oops. I'm going to clean it out. And I want to go back to the frog, and I'm going to put some green in him. So add a little yellow to the green. he's matching too much, just add another color. We add a little white in there. If he's matching the lily pad, that is. We'll end up outlining him one more time, so try not to lose your black lines. While I'm at it, I'm going to put a little bit more white into his belly. And I think I'll add a little bit of white on my lily pads. Looks like white highlights here and there. Maybe just a tiny bit around here. Oops, I got some pink in there, but that won't hurt anything. Let's see, for his eye, I want to fill in some brown. So I have this burnt sienna, and we can make a little brown circle in the middle. I think also, well, he's a little wet, so I think so I have this little brush. I'm going to put a few brown marks over here to represent the cattails. And then I also want to fill in these cattails here. Looks like I lost my other one. Guess I totally painted it out. You could put a little bit of brown on your lily pads too. Put a little bit in there. I'm also going to take a little bit of brown and just add a little bit of down in here for depth. You don't have to do that, it's just if you want to. Let's see, I want that to be a little bit more yellow. I didn't get mine quite yellow enough. Let's put some more yellow in his belly. And then I want to put a little bit of brown in down in here too. Putting some white highlights on his skin. Just adding another coat to this brown. And I'm gonna make a little shadow. So I'm not cleaning out my brown, but I'm going into my blue. And I'm gonna go around the edge. I'm also going to pick up, you can do the brown with the blue still, or you can add a little black to it. But the cattails always have these little, like a needle coming out of the top of it. So I'm going to add that. And then also the tails. I'm going to add a little bit of, eye's a little bit tricky, but I'm going to outline around his eye. You kind of lose your frog in a lily pad here, but if you re-outline him again, it starts to show up a little bit better. Then put a little bit of brown in him too if you want to have a little bit on his skin. Just little brown touches here and there. I think I'm going to put a little bit of green in his wings too, the dragonflies. I think I'll do a little bit of the green and yellow. So same thing where maybe I'll just outline it a little bit. Maybe a little bit of white. And I want to add a little bit of white and yellow again. Let's see if this is what I want to do. Make it look more yellow. I could add some more green on the other side. Basically just play with the colors to get it, the colors that you like. A little bit of white into his wings. Just streaking that in a little bit. Little white highlights. If you have a hard time with the wings, you can just fill the whole thing in with color. Since I've got white on my brush, I'm gonna add some more white up in here. Just doing a soft, delicate touch. And then I'm going to go around his eyes. And I want to use the back end of one of the brushes, and I'm going to dip in my white, and I want to put little white dewdrops on the wings. You can even put a few up here if you like. Put a little white in his eye. I don't know, I might want to use this end instead. A little white highlight. And I'm going to put some highlights on this edge of these. Oh, and I also want to do the same thing with the back end again. And I want to put little white tips on his little feet there. Or this little web feet. Might have made that bigger than I wanted to. The last thing I want to do is just sign it. Could put a little bit more white over here too. There's always something that you see, something else. And you could just keep painting and painting. I've got a little fine, so like number 3 for signing. I like to twirl it in my water, go into my white. And there we go. Thank you so much for painting with me today. I hope you had fun.